To wrap up the year, I decided to do a quick video where I'm just sharing a bunch of the stuff I enjoyed consuming this year. Books, newsletters, that sort of stuff. I just thought it's going to be fun for me and might be fun for you if you want to learn about a few things that I enjoyed this year. I will say that most of these are not going to be too related to my work because I do enough of learning specifically for that. But I still think you might enjoy this, and yes, there are some hints of what I do for work. I'll try to link to the things that I mentioned in the description so you don't have to take notes as I'm talking. And if you enjoy anything of these, if you share my interest, if you have any ideas, I'd love to hear in the comments what you're thinking about them. And maybe you'll pick up one of these and find that your 2025 will be a bit more interesting. So with that out of the way, let's start with the list. I'm going to try and do it relatively rapid fire. There is an amazing newsletter that I'm really enjoying if you're a bit into men's clothing and into style and stuff similar. It's called The Contender by David Goggins, and I really do enjoy it. It has a great accompanying podcast. And while we're talking about David, I really enjoyed his book Men and Manners, which is a bit about how we maybe ought to be behaving in this world. And I just enjoyed because I feel like a lot of the things that we maybe would like to do in the world, we don't think about enough when it comes to how we want to treat others, when it comes to the sorts of people we want to become, and when it comes to what lessons I'm trying to impart on my kids. So I'm really enjoying his writing, and I do think that Men and Manners is a great collection of lessons from all sorts of people from all over the world who have gone through different experiences, and it's a very quick and fun read. So check that one out if you're into that sort of stuff. Moving on to another person who is known for his style. I'm really enjoying, in general, anything Stanley Tucci does, and I had a really good time listening to his latest audiobook where he essentially recounts everything he has eaten over a year along with all sorts of different stories. It's not too deep some of the time, and it has these tangents that are very deep other parts of the time, and I like the guy. I like listening to his voice. It's one of the only things that I listen to at 1x speed over the past 3 years, and I recommend doing that if you enjoy Stanley Tucci stuff, if you enjoy thinking about food or preparing food. In general, if you just want to hear about someone's life experiences, having had to do things that will probably happen to all of us as we grow older when it comes to our family, our kids, our parents, etc. So I enjoyed that one, and I actually am looking forward to re-listen to it as I did with his previous one. Moving on to some fiction. I try to read some fiction every year, and for the past couple of years, most of the fiction I'm reading is actually in audiobook, so I'm not really reading it unless it's in Italian, where I'm reading Italian to practice. And I'm really enjoying the Red Rising series. It's science fiction about an interesting future where there are different types of humans and there are races and colors, etc. And I just enjoy the writing. I like the humor, and I really recommend it. It's on Audible. Some of them are even free on Audible if you have Audible, so I really recommend checking it out. It's just captivating and fun. And we've been rereading Harry Potter with our kids. Like, for the kids, it's the first time. For us, it's rereading. And it's an entirely different type of story, but also that is so much fun to get immersed in these worlds. So I'm enjoying Red Rising for a bit more gory sort of stories with a lot of wars. It's a bit like Game of Thrones. And I'm really enjoying Harry Potter with the kids. We're in book number 4 right now. And those are like some of the fiction books that I really have enjoyed the most reading over the past few years. And I think that if you're into that, check them out. If you're not into fiction, I really recommend picking up one book and trying it, because it helps us think about things differently. And I find that it helps me disconnect from the day-to-day a bit. More on the books front, I really enjoyed The Coddling of the American Mind. having seen it being recommended so much over the past few years, I decided to check it out, and it is a good one. It helps me think about how I want to grow my kids, about the lessons we're teaching them, about the environments around us, in deciding what I can actively do to help them become better grown-ups and adults in society. So I really recommend that if you have kids or plan to have kids, if you're in some way connected to education. And another book, as I said, my Italian reading is also generally more fiction and romances. I am enjoying a series about a detective who has a bit of an attitude like, Sherlock and House MD, which is the type of humor I tend to like. And the last book I read is stagione. I'm not going to get too much into other Italian reading recommendations, which is actually most of the things I do for fun. But if you're interested in that, do let me know and I'll share all the resources that I have. One last book, which I read at the beginning of the year and really helped me throughout the year, is The 12-Week Year. I actually realized that a lot of the things in the book are how I ended up over the past decade or so creating my own operating system for how I work, how I manage myself, how I try and help my clients when I coach them to manage their lives, because I don't believe in trying to have yearly goals that are just so long. I really think that we need to think about things more shorter term, especially nowadays. It helps us keep momentum, it helps us change things more rapidly when we need to. And the 12-week year is a great framework for that I recommend checking out if you want to do that. You don't have to follow everything in the book because I don't believe in being too dogmatic about these things. But if you set up some of the things in the system for yourself as an experiment for the new year, I think it's going to help you out. So check that out if you're interested in upgrading your day-to-day a bit. I don't get to watch too much TV, but I really recommend Marvelous Mrs. Maisel that we're now wrapping up. Just fun, good humor if you're interested in something light to just have some fun and look at old New York. I think that's cool. And I've got a bunch of podcasts I almost always have my AirPods in my ears if I'm not doing something with a client or writing. So I really could recommend a ton of podcasts. I'm going to rapid fire a few that I'm enjoying. So first of all, Tim Ferris. I've been listening to the guy for over a decade and I really enjoy most of the interviews that he does. And he's just funny and fun, and those, even if they are on the longer side, they're just good conversations with a ranging variety of people, which really helps you learn about different things that you never would have come across otherwise. Pack One Bag has been a great series with a cool story. Well, it's not a fun one, but with a good story about a family that how it escaped the Holocaust from Italy and a bunch of the things that happened there with the rise of fascism. It's been a very highly rated one. Stanley Tucci is there as well, so I might be why I enjoyed it. But do check that one out if you're interested in some real life story based on letters of the family and stuff like that. Then there's Cal Newport's podcast, which is good and usually dense with a bunch of real solid advice based on people's real questions and his thinking. He's one of the most interesting thinkers I think that we have when it comes to how knowledge workers can have a better life. So do check that one out as well. And one last podcast that I'm really enjoying for years now is Cortex with CGP Grey and Mike Hurley. I really enjoy their conversations, and it makes me miss CGP Grey's all their podcasts, Hello Internet, which I recommend just downloading and listening to the entire thing from the start. I've done that. Those are fun episodes that I always enjoy good conversations between funny people. And lastly, I also very much enjoy cooking and learning new recipes and learning about food. So I watch a bunch of food content on YouTube, maybe too much. I'm going to list a few of the shows that I enjoy if you want to try anything out, and they're very wide-ranging. There's Sam the Cooking Guy. There's Not Another Cooking Show. There's Pasta Grammar if you want something that's a bit more old-school Italian from someone who actually is sharing her own Italian family recipes. And of course, there's Babish, which is just funny, and I would watch his stuff even unrelated to the recipe. If I'm not interested in the recipe, I still would watch it because he's just nice to watch. This is wrapping up what I essentially spent my free time on this year, not including time with the kids and learning a bunch of Italian. I think that you need to have some hobbies. You need to do things that aren't work, so that when you do work, you always know what you're not doing. If you're always consumed by work, you don't know what you're missing out on. If you have other hobbies, it helps ensure that when you're doing work, it has to be good enough. It has to be fun enough and fulfilling enough, because otherwise you can see the other things that you would have liked to do. And I think it helps us be, a more well-rounded character in life and have a more fulfilling life. And I'm not trying to be too cliche, but I think it's just, something that we owe to ourselves. So that's my list. If you have any ideas, any comments about the things, I really would like to hear, so let me know in the comments. And if you have a similar list for yourself, let me know. I'd love to see. Have an amazing 2025.